Welcome to the first podcast of the Unscripted Pharmacist. We're really excited today. I'm going to be sharing some of my personal history as well as some interesting, take-home points from the last 10 years of diabetes education.
This is the Unscripted Pharmacist with Kyle Rootsaert, Doctor of Pharmacy and Board Certified in Advanced Diabetes Management, and Lenora Casey, Oncology Certified Registered Nurse. Because each person is unique, consider this as medical information, not medical advice. See your physician regarding what might be best for you.
Hey, Kyle.
How's it going?
It's good. How are you today?
Good.
Good.
This is kind of fun. We don't get to do this.
No, we don't ever get to.
We hardly get to talk very much at work. I have to sneak over just to talk to you guys and do like a really quick hallway consult.
I call it curbside.
Curbsiding it.
Consult.
Kyle's curbsiding it today. Look at him go. Chris gets it quite a bit too, I think. Like, okay, Kyle's got some new stats he's going to share with us today.
Right. Maybe some new studies.
Yeah, it's always something exciting. I'm kind of completely immersed in this topic, probably more so than I should. So this is kind of fun because I get to do this for a whole hour.
Yes. Yeah. Well, you get to.
I don't usually get,
but you get to talk about yourself today.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's
yeah.
true.
Yeah. We are.
Not
We're
as
talking
quite as
about
exciting
you.
as the studies I've been reading. Anyways, yeah.
All right, Kyle.
Okay.
Who are you?
I'm born and raised in the Bay Area, from San Jose. My parents are Canadian.
Really?
Yeah, they migrated from Canada in '63. So I guess I'm a son of an immigrant.
You are.
Yeah, son of an immigrant. Anyways, I spent a lot of time chasing my tail, not knowing what I was going to do with my life. So I spent like 10 years getting a 6-year degree.
Oh, so what was?
It was like business.
Oh, okay.
Didn't know anything about business, but then I turned around and thought I would get into psychology, became an abnormal psych major. And then I was a microbiology major because I loved scuba diving because I was really, thrilled with what I could see. And my brother has now kind of taken that off in a different direction. But then I focused, I worked as a technician in a hospital pharmacy.
Oh,
I
really?
was the drug runner.
Oh.
I was the drug delivery boy.
I love the drug runner title.
And it was fun. It was actually really enjoyable because what I would do is I would deliver these drugs super fast. So I could get back to the pharmacy and like learn from the pharmacist what the drugs did. And I was always super fascinated with that. I mean, I would go home with package inserts and read them at home. Like, wow, look at this.
Yeah.
I would sit there and read the PDR. I was just really fascinated with the human body and how drugs worked. And I had some really, really good influences in my life. So I started attending junior college, and it was really a assistant director of the pharmacy that said, hey, you should become a pharmacist. And I was like, really? Not me? Have you seen my grades? They're horrible. Like I was all over the place. And so I ended up having to take classes over again. And I had some great professors that were like, all right, we're going to change this C to a B or something like that. It was always, not knowing what I wanted to do for so long. And then once I had that focus, it was like, oh yeah, this is cool. I really like this. And so I went to pharmacy school in New Orleans.
What a place to go to pharmacy school.
Yeah. Seriously. I mean, that was really odd. It was 4 years of, oh yeah, I got to tell you this story. I worked at the U.S. Department of Agriculture.
No way.
Picking cotton in the middle of summertime in Mississippi.
Okay, that's terrible.
Yeah, it was crazy, but you know what? It was so weird.
Too hot down there.
I know. It was ridiculous. So it was a huge project. We were looking at cotton and its different stages of growth and how you can make cotton stronger, how you can make your shirts better and like hold the dye. So like the research facility had like washing machines everywhere. And I was measuring potassium and, believe it or not, glucose levels in cotton as it progressed.
Oh, wow.
So we had all these experimental hybrid types of cotton. Yeah. So how many people can you say I picked cotton during the summertime in Mississippi?
Not a lot.
So once I graduated, I went and did a residency at UCSF. Okay. So I got into the pharmacy practice residency program there. And that was really cool. That was fun because I was living in San Francisco.
I know.
And I look back and I go, man, I would love to do that again. I would love to go back to UCSF and like just be around people that are
Yes.
doing exciting, fun things. And
There's so much research going on right now.
yeah,
It's a very exciting college.
that pharmacy school, I think, has the most grant money. They had like 2 full-time pharmacists just doing the study subjects, like who got placebo and who got the actual drug. So it's insane.
But those are the best trials.
Yeah, and they were doing robot delivery for their. So I wasn't needed anymore. I was replaced by a robot.
Oh.
That would go and like go to the different floors and deliver the drugs. So, anyways, I had this experience of working in a hospital pharmacy, and I worked for a hospital for a couple years, and then I got involved with retail, which was a totally different side of the coin here.
Yeah.
Like, you see, kind of in the hospital, you kind of see the end game. And they're really sick people there.
Mm-hmm. No, very sick.
Yeah, and like they just got like dealt like the worst set of genes ever, typically, especially at UCSF. But anyways, I did that for a while, and then I ended up at a retail pharmacy here in California, and that was a long time ago, about 10 years ago, and that was just down the road.
Yes.
Yeah, and I remember what really kind of got me going down this path of education was I was the one dishing out the diagnosis. How in the world would I be the one telling the patient about their diabetes? I didn't feel like that was my job. I could have just walked away and said, that's not my job. But there was...
But a lot of people do.
Yeah. But when the patient's crying...
Yeah, that's...
There's nothing there's nothing worse than that. So I'm like, okay, what can I do to help this person? Like, and then she asked me, like, what do I eat? How do I live? What am I supposed to do? I'm diabetic now. Like, you caught some sort of disease. So I was like, all right, I don't really know. That's horrible. Mm-hmm. Like, you never say that. If you say, I don't know, you just say, I don't know, but I'm going to get back to you.
Right.
Like, that's what I was taught. I don't know.
I think
but you don't make up stuff. You're like, hey, let me do some research and I'll get back to you. And man, I realized that I didn't know anything about nutrition. I didn't know anything about what to eat myself, right? You're going to take advice from me. I was significantly heavier at the time. You know, I weighed 50 pounds heavier and probably not very healthy. I think I want to say I weighed 205. I weigh like 155 now, but my blood pressure was borderline. It was like 140 over 90, right? It's not good.
Well, back then it was actually normal.
Yeah.
Now
but I
it's
used to go,
not.
Well, that's because I've been moving around so much. And typically my heart rate was upper 70s, low 80s.
Okay.
So I was like, okay. I thought I was okay. And then I started getting in this diabetes education, and I just kind of went up to the pharmacy computer and like, retail programs for pharmacists, clinical programs.
Okay.
So I went in and I found this thing called the Creative Pharmacist, which was cool because I didn't have anything to go off of. And so they gave us these canned lectures.
Canned, meaning that...
Canned is in like, here's your PowerPoint, teach this.
Okay. So
And
it's
then
already everything's pre-made for you.
Oh, yeah. And it was a hard gulp because I've never taught. I've always been like, the student.
Like a 101.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. In front of a bunch of people. Oh, I was so scared. I was so nervous. Talking in the pharmacy, in the front of the store, and I had we had like 30 people at our first class. I'm like, oh my gosh, people actually want to hear.
And these are all patients.
These are all patients. I'm like, you guys all want to hear something that I have to say? Wow, this is cool.
Well, the topic
scary
is,
though. Yeah, but I didn't know much in the beginning. I thought, back in the beginning, I was like, it's all about drugs.
Oh my God.
You use drugs to fix this problem, right? And so I was a firm believer in the American Diabetes Association guidelines. I was like, this is what we got to do. I can fix everybody's diabetes problem with insulin.
Right. Well, a form of it.
Yeah, it's either pills,
right,
or injectable. I'm like, you patients, let me just show you some math. Let me just show you how you can figure out what your dose is. Here, count your carbs. Like, oh, that's hard. Mm-hmm. Counting carbs is difficult.
Yeah, it is.
It's not the easiest thing in the world.
No.
Like, and then I'm just like, okay, well, if you just do this simple math, and it wasn't simple. You have a correction factor, and it was awful. And you have like your insulin to carbohydrate sensitivity, which is a lot of what type 1s do. I basically wanted to treat all the type 2s like they didn't have enough insulin. when the reality is they have too much. And here I'm going to fix all this, right? And they would come back and say, yeah, I'm gaining weight. And this was a really hard sell. They did not want to use insulin. They didn't want to stick themselves, and they didn't want to inject themselves with insulin. And it's scary, super scary. Man, what do I do?
So from there, like, okay, so you're giving these canned lectures,
Right.
but what are you seeing? So these patients are gaining weight, and you're looking at these lectures, and are you believing it?
Oh yeah, I drank the punch. I was into it. I was like, yeah, guidelines,
Right.
you guys, and I studied the guidelines like crazy, and that's when I got my board certified diabetes management, and then the creative pharmacists encouraged the retail pharmacies to get certified to be able to teach diabetes self-management. So, man, that was like 2 years of my life that I want back. But it was like I took a lot of time and energy to get this pharmacy accredited.
Right.
And so I was teaching these classes, and finally I started doing these self-management courses. It is about 8 weeks, right? You have 1 hour lectures, and we did it at like a local place down the way where it was actually a retail space that didn't have any heat, and it was the middle of winter, and so it was super cold, and we were like, can we possibly have the heat? So I told everyone, you got to bring jackets. So I would do this class. I think my first class was like 20 patients, and it was the graduation night. It was like, you've done your 8 classes.
Oh, okay.
I'm done. I've got all my lectures done, and we're good, and off you go. And it was like, well, what about next week? I'm like, well, there's no class next week. You're not going to, no, I'm not going to do that. Yeah. And they go, no, we want you to come back. And I think that's when I realized, like, hey, what I have to say might be of some use. And that was like a huge like light bulb that went off, and like huge confidence boost. I'm like, you want to hear from me? Really? Then I felt like the pressure was on, because if you come back next week, I'm done with my material. What am I going to do now?
Yeah.
Right? So I got to like, all right, every week. And I was driving 2 hours every day to work.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah. So I was constantly like, all right. I mean, I don't know if I can admit this on this, but I take the phone and I'd stick it to the steering wheel, as horrible as that was. And I would sit there and I'd watch medical lectures.
Or you
And
would listen. Let's not say you watched
Oh.
them.
Oh, no. These are country. No, I'm just kidding. I have somehow survived this long. I know. That is my classroom. I do enjoy listening to podcasts. I do listen to medical lectures. And I made it very clear in the very beginning for myself was that I wasn't going to watch anybody that had some sort of conflict. If you're pushing something other than a book, right?
Right.
I wasn't going to listen to you. So you had to be MD, PhD, and then I started taking nutrition courses. There is a great open source classrooms that you can take through Coursera. Coursera, course, and then ERA at the end. They have free courses, and you can audit them or you can pay for your certificate.
Oh.
So you can, whatever topic you want, anything. I mean, you can learn programming. You can learn how to create a website. You can learn nutrition. You can learn about diabetes. You can dive as deep as you want through Coursera. And these are, I mean, you're in a classroom with like 30, 50,000 people, and you've got like a bulletin board, and you can interact with other people, and it's super cool because you're also being taught by, I think, some of the best university professors, right? So I was just, and I still am this way. And this is probably a character flaw, but I just want to learn. I just want to stimulate my brain because I want to progress. I want to build and build and build. But the bottom line is I'm doing all of this to help patients.
Right.
I want to help them, just like you got into this field, because
exactly.
the bottom line is you got a big heart, okay? You got a big heart, and you want to help people because you care,
Right. Exactly.
right? You
Yeah.
don't want to see them suffer.
No.
Everything I've done in diabetes education is free. I've never been paid at all. Well, I can't say that. No, I
think
got
at the
paid
beginning,
eggs.
right?
I got
Eggs.
paid eggs.
Oh, you got eggs.
Somebody gave me eggs, right?
That works, especially now.
Oh,
You know
yeah.
how expensive they are?
Oh, well, they're good eggs
Yeah.
too. You know that when your patients
I
bring in
know.
your eggs,
They're
they didn't go to the
free-range
store.
chickens.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So I was stoked. I was like, okay. And it was kind of a prideful thing. Like, yeah, I got paid in eggs tonight. Cool. And then they wouldn't go away. So I was like, well, what am I going to do with these people? Come up with more material.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to the library.
Right.
We're going to, Good Friends, the Chinese
Oh,
buffet
yeah.
restaurant. I've taught there. I've taught.
I rolled my eyes because it's like that is that's like the worst place to take a diabetic.
No, the worst place was the Round Table Pizza. Yeah, I mean, here we are. It's early in the morning, and we're doing this this lecture or this whatever Kyle had, the whatever's on the menu for the day. And I used like the trophy room in the back, right? It had this huge screen, and so we would go in there, and it was before the place opened, but you could smell it.
Oh yeah.
Can you imagine teaching
the dough?
And I'm telling you, don't eat the pizza, right? But it was really fun because people would come in, they would share recipes, and it was such a bonding experience for them that they were like almost codependent upon each other when it came to progress. Yeah. And I think that's really unique.
Well, also they weren't alone in their
No, they had someone to bounce questions off of, like, hey, I got this question. But it was cool because they came together and they educated themselves and shared experiences. And I'm just kind of the moderator here. Like, oh, cool. What do you tell me about your experiences. It was a two-way street. I was learning from them as well as they were learning from me. It was awesome. It was so much fun.
So what was happening with their health that you noticed?
Oh gosh. I will tell you this, that their A1C, their blood sugar, would go.
Explain what an A1C is.
An A1C is, this is such an antiquated measure.
I know, but still. This is what the doctors across the board utilize.
Like their number.
Right.
Like everyone's been reduced to a percentage. Like, what are you? You're a diabetic. What's your number? Well, I'm diabetic. I'm on insulin. My A1C is 7 and I've gained 20 pounds in the last year. Good job. You know what I mean?
Right.
That kind of stuff.
You don't want to hear that.
No, I don't. But you would.
Yeah.
I wasn't doing reversal at that point. Mm-hmm. I was telling them about the medications that they could use and the side effects. And, it wasn't until later that I kind of went in a different direction.
But what was that point that you went in that different direction? What happened?
I had a discussion with the dietitian about how difficult it was to get patients to be compliant.
Okay.
Right? So I started doing some compliance research, and you're like, if something's once a day, it's like 80%. If it's something's like twice a day, it drops to like 60%. 3-4 times a day. And this is what we do in the pharmacy. We give up people medication all the time, 3-4 times a day. Mm-hmm. No, like 20% of the patients are going to probably take it 4 times a day. Right? I mean,
I do know.
Once a day,
I have
you
to
can
do
handle
compliance.
Yeah.
I have to call people and say, are you taking this?
Yeah, it's almost impossible. And you're like, you basically, as a pharmacist, you're the compliance police. Come on, you got to change your lifestyle. You got to take your pills with you, right?
Right.
I mean, I've been on antibiotics before, and I never take something 4 times a day. I can't remember to do anything 4 times a day. Yeah. I'd be at the end of the day and go, shoot, I missed 3 doses.
Yeah,
right?
I know.
So it was all like hounding them about compliance, especially with insulin. And so it wasn't until I listened to a talk by Sarah Hallberg. I want to say it was about 2015. And she was basically the co-founder of Virta Health, which is kind of something I had my eye on. That's my target, really. They're an amazing company that has done so much good for reversing people's diabetes. But she said something I thought was really interesting. She said, ignore the guidelines. That's scary.
Yeah, because
now you're in outer darkness.
That's our gold standard.
Yeah. Oh, American Diabetes Association, when they put that out every year, I get there and I read that thing, and how is it different from the year before? So it was a couple of interesting things in that talk, but as well as I also noticed myself like, hey, these guidelines say that the amount of carbohydrates necessary to sustain life is 0. Like, okay. A couple sentences later, but we recommend the Mediterranean diet. Like, wait a minute, you just said 0.
Right.
Why?
What happened?
What happened? Like, how did you do full stop? We're gonna go from 50% of your diet should be carbohydrates, right? Which is basically a food pyramid, 55-60%, 6 to 11 servings of carbohydrates.
Now it's my plate.
My plate, yeah. Oh, don't get me started on my plate. that was an expensive little graphic for that one. So, and then I would also say, So she was really inspiring. And if you think about what she did, I mean, she really put her neck out there, because
She did.
if you say, I don't follow the guidelines, you will not get any research. There will be no funding for you.
funding.
You are on your own. If you're going to do some sort of study, right, which she ended up doing with Stephen Finney, who wrote with Jeff Volek.
Yes.
It's The Art and Science of Low Carb Living. Love it. Great book. It was one of the first books that I read on this topic, and I was like, okay, we can do this. I'm going to change my tune here. So I started changing my approach to patients, saying, hey, why don't you try low carb, right? LCHF. And Jason Fung was certainly a big part of that.
Yes, he's
fasting.
huge.
Fasting.
Yes, fasting.
Intermittent fasting, interval-based eating.
Yes.
I want to say the first time I ever listened to him, there's 8 hours of lectures on obesity. And of course, he wrote Obesity Code,
Yes, I
Diabetes
have all
Code.
those, yeah.
Yes, wonderful,
They're great
fantastic,
books.
amazing. And of course, he's Canadian.
Yeah. Well, that's where he
I like
practices
that.
also.
Yeah, but he's from Canada. He's
whatever.
Toronto, and then UCLA. And then I would say Robert Lustig. Robert Lustig, I think it was the Bitter Truth About Sugar. And basically, this is from 2012, but he was basically like reiterating research from Dr. John Yudkin from the UK, which was back in the 60s and 70s when he did all this research with sugar. And he's like, hey, cardiovascular disease is probably sugar. That's probably the cause. And he had all kinds of proof. And he's like, I can't rule out other factors like what does smoking do? Because at that time in
Right.
in the world,
it
there
was
tons
huge.
of smoking, right?
60s, everyone smoked.
He's like, I can't definitively say this, but I have a really good hunch. So we all just kind of ignored him. But anyways, if you listen to Robert Lustig, and I would definitely recommend that you watch that YouTube video. It is amazing. What I like about him is his passion. He is downright angry. He's angry. Well, here he is. He's a pediatric endocrinologist.
Right.
And he's treating very obese kids who are getting WIC, right? Women, infant, children.
Yes.
This is the California basically welfare program for kids.
For pregnant women and young children.
And they're drinking Sunny Delight.
Yes, because that's what they pay for.
Yeah. And he's like, this can't be. This has got
White
to stop.
bread, Sunny
Yes.
Delight, all
Yes.
the sugary cereals, whatever says WIC approved.
Right.
Yeah.
It wasn't checked. He's like, hey, this is wrong.
Yeah.
So he's pretty amazing. So he went and got his law degree, and he's really trying to fight the food industry on what are we allowing for our kids to eat in the schools, as well as he has to deal with these really crazy patients that have a lot of leptin resistance problem.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he, as a pediatric and neuroendocrinologist, he looked at kids with leptin problems. So they constantly would overeat. And it's not their fault, but they don't get that signal that says you're done eating.
Is that what leptin does?
Yeah, leptin turns on that you're done eating, right? Move away from the table and start moving, right?
So it's the satiety. So it shuts that.
Oh, it shuts it down. It works. It when it works properly, it's amazing. It keeps us in a very, very well controlled, tight balance when it comes to weight. We should never even think about, oh gosh, I ate too much or I ate too little. It should be something that's just naturally controlled, like a dog. You don't force your dog to eat.
No.
Right? No. But leptin's also kind of like if when I was a kid, if you gave me like a cupcake, I'd eat that and leptin would be working. Trust me, I didn't want 2 or 3 more. I would be bouncing off the walls. Just like, blah, right? That's leptin telling me to move. Versus some people would eat a cupcake and want 3 more and be still sitting there. They're not moving. So that signal that you're full and you need to move is blocked. What causes that? What causes this hormonal imbalance? I don't want to be a spoiler, but it's sugar.
Okay.
All right. So I started getting involved in doing these consultations, and I would grab anybody that would listen to me, right? Hey, you want to go in my office? And in the retail pharmacy, I had an office, which not a lot of pharmacists have an office where you can go in and teach people.
No, they have to do it out in front of everyone.
Oh, yeah. And so everyone can hear, right? Awesome.
It's great for HIPAA.
I could actually close the door and have a huge whiteboard, and we're going at it. I've got stuff in there. I got props, right? Little props that I had from my classes.
Important, I think.
Oh, yeah, but it was all about education, right?
Right.
And I would make these recommendations, shall we say, and they would come back for their refill a month, 2 months later, like, hey, I lost 20 pounds. Hey, is Kyle around? I want to talk to him. Can you tell him that, my doctor says, good job, and whatever I'm doing, my lab's improved, and just to keep it up? Like, people would say, hey, I've got more energy, right? They would come back to, especially when they have refills. So you would see them several times a month, which was cool. So you're doing this intervention and you're supporting them as they're going. Mm-hmm. So, it was a lot of fun. But I look back and go, that's kind of dangerous.
Well, because, how do you think it was dangerous at that point in time?
I think because I really believe that low carb and fasting is like a prescription strength. It's so strong.
Oh, okay.
It can reverse diabetes so quickly. So if you're on something like insulin or a sulfonylurea.
So they should really work with their doctor if they decide to go on like a low carb.
Really?
Yes.
The doctor?
Yeah.
I would agree.
Well,
or you could talk to your pharmacist.
It's true. But especially because they're the ones prescribing. So it's important to kind of get them involved and say, hey, I'm going to try this and I want you on board with me. And I think it's a good conversation because that then opens up the door.
Yeah. I doubt you're going to get a positive response from your
Well,
doctor.
even if you
But
don't,
I agree.
at least the doctor knows what you're doing.
Right. Exactly. That's a good point. That is a good point.
Yeah.
Doctors should know, hey, I'm doing LCHF or I'm doing intermittent fasting.
Right. Well, I don't know if you have to tell them that you're fasting because intermittent fasting is just 12 to 16 hours. So you don't necessarily have to eat breakfast. You can still have a small eating window with lunch and dinner, maybe a snack, depending upon how you feel. But you don't necessarily need to tell them, hey, I'm going to skip breakfast.
Right.
Right.
But
you're an adult.
The scary phone call was when, hey, Kyle, I did what you told me to, but my blood sugar is 47 this morning.
Oh.
Yeah. Or I took my normal dose of insulin and I crashed. I'm like, oh, wow. Okay, this is really strong stuff. And that's when I kind of had to say, hey, if you're going to do this, I recommend you get a hold of your doctor and let him know that you're going to reduce your dose of insulin. Okay? I had certain I kind of made up my own little rules and said, hey, if your blood sugar is this, you need to if your blood sugar is too low, and I usually use a safe number like 150 and say, hey, if your blood sugar is less than 150, you need to reduce your dose. Okay? Mm-hmm. I don't want danger.
Yeah, no.
Because this is what can bring on a heart attack. This is prescription strength stuff, right?
And also if they get too low and they're still on insulin, it could cause seizure.
Yeah, I haven't had that.
Yeah. Well, no,
I've done this in the hospital too. Yeah.
I've seen it when I was working in the hospital where they gave too much or they weren't giving them enough food and they were giving them too much insulin and then the patient seized. So, I come also from, I worked at Oakland County Hospital at one point. So I've seen some pretty bad cases where they were very sick.
Right.
And, they were in, a coma. So, these are. Yeah, that's
what I mean. This is strong stuff.
Yes, no.
And here we are handing out basically a loaded gun across the pharmacy counter.
Exactly.
Hoping that they know what they're doing.
Well, and you don't know their living situation. Do they have enough money for food? What kind of food are they taking? We don't have those conversations.
Yeah. I took my normal dose of insulin and I decided to eat a salad.
Yeah.
Yeah. How many times you heard that? You're like,
But the thing is what kind of salad? Because now you have to say, is it a pasta salad?
I didn't think about that.
Yeah. No, in my mind, because I have, I'm a nurse, so I have to dig. A lot of times you have to dig.
They think
this
they're being good and eating a green salad. And you're like, oh. So nowadays, I think my approach is much different. I go, all right, we'll let your sugars run a little bit higher. It's not going to kill you. But you got to stop your meds. And typically this happens so fast, but we're on a tangent. I do love this tangent because this is what it's all about.
It's really good.
It's about reversal, right?
It's about, helping people take back their health.
Right.
And I think that's the most important thing. They have to make that decision and then they have to say, hey, I now have these tools that I'm being educated with and then working with their care team. all, depending upon who it is. But I think that's the most important thing. People have to become educated.
Right.
We have such a broken system.
That's the emphasis. Education.
Yes.
What do patients really know about their disease state? What do they really know about their drugs? And
Correct.
that's where the rubber hits the road. And when they come back and they go, man, I've lost 50 pounds.
Yes.
I've lost 80 pounds. I mean, I got some exciting success stories, but it's like, wow. I had one patient that didn't bother telling me until much later. I'm like, you lost 50 pounds and you waited years to tell me that it was that useful. But that's what fueled the fire. That was like, oh, wow, it did that. This really worked for you. I'm going to learn more. I need to learn more. This is really important. This is my drive, right? And so, unfortunately, this is all that I talk about and think about. So, this is kind of a favor you're doing for my wife here because she doesn't have to listen to this when I get home. Okay, shoot.
Let's see. Well, okay, let's talk. So, what are some of the tools that people use? Like, this new thing with CGMs.
Oh, yeah, the continuous glucose monitor.
So you actually started using the CGMs, right?
No, I started with finger sticking, right?
Okay, so how many times a day did you finger stick? Yourself.
Myself?
We're talking about Kyle finger sticking himself all day long.
Because my number one recommendation is, what does the food do to you? You need to stick yourself several times around a meal.
Okay.
Before the meal, so we got a baseline.
Okay.
Hour and a half later, and then 2 or 3 hours later. So that's 3 sticks. I only did it like twice.
Okay.
Because I couldn't stand it. It hurt so bad.
It does.
And I also have really thick skin, so I had to put like the I call it the depth charge, or like how far does that Lancet device
you have
go
to
in?
set it to the max.
Like, wham! I was like, man, I put it on like 5, between 1 and 5. I put it on 5, and I actually still have a bruise from. I checked my ketones the other day. And I hate finger sticking. I'm sorry, but I can't imagine how difficult this would be. And it wasn't until I started finger sticking, I'm like, hey, man, I can't expect patients to do this. This is awful.
And how many times? I mean, you did this every day religiously?
I only did it like twice, and I did it around some of my own favorite meals. I'm like, man, I would notice that my blood sugar would drop after some of my favorite meals.
Oh, okay.
And I thought they were healthy. I did I make a really amazing sausage lentil soup that I haven't had in a very long time, ever since I kind of discovered, hey, this beans must be making my sugar rise, right? And then come down. So it kind of opened my eyes to like what kind of advice I was giving and how difficult it would be and how painful it is. And the CGM kind of took away all of that. But that's more like, man, I've been doing the CGM for like the last 3 years since it first came out.
Now, what made you decide on a CGM?
I think VertaHealth. VertaHealth is quite fascinating because you've got coaches in San Francisco and patients in Indiana. You're like, man, they're so far away, but they're monitoring them in real time. So they're seeing what their blood sugar is like all the time right now. They can look at it. They can verify. They can go, hey, what'd you eat? What'd you just do? Your blood sugar just went up 100, right? Did you notice this? Basically what they do is just educate patients through the continuous glucose monitor.
Oh, and so the patients actually take a look at what food they're eating, and they know where they start off at. Oh. And then they see the spike and the decline, and then the up and down all day long.
Think about how much information that is and how many times you have to stick yourself.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you might as well just have like a scab that you kind of peel open every couple of hours, you know what I mean?
And a lot of our diabetic patients complain about them having to stick themselves all the time.
And what is the finger stick? It's just photograph.
It's a moment in time.
Yeah, it's nothing. I want the whole movie. I want the whole video.
So
right?
That's what the CGM gives you.
Yeah, it gives you. And my philosophy is more information is better than what we have currently. So why aren't we pushing this? Why aren't we like making sure that it's in every diabetic's arm?
So the other thing is expense.
Well, that's where I would say that the Libre is really cheap. It's at a point where it's not crazy expensive. And I don't think you need to use it all the time. I think you need to know and experiment with foods. And then as long as you're eating the foods that you know don't spike you because you've tried it before. I mean, everyone has their own favorite food items, right?
Yes.
And you kind of know after a while, like, hey, I'm pretty sure that the donut isn't such a great idea, right? Or
Right.
hey, I'm pretty sure the bagel doesn't work, or the pizza, or did I show you last night? I did show you guys. You can see all kinds of things like stress too.
Oh yeah.
I told you, like the patient texted me when I got out of work yesterday. She's like, hey, did you see my blood sugar between 3 and 6 a.m.? I'm like, no. And so I check it out. I'm like, what happened? Did you have like a really horrible 3 hours of sleep? Did you have a really bad dream? She goes, no, but I did watch a scary movie before I went to bed. And I was like, oh no. So you can see stress. You can see pretty much every aspect of your life with your glucose. Like how does everything that you do affect your blood sugar? And that's information you wouldn't have had.
No.
If you were to you're going to wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning and finger stick yourself? Really?
Well, I'm crazy like that.
Oh yeah, that's right. You do that.
I stick myself to find out if I'm in ketosis.
Yeah, see, that's what I
2
mean.
or 3
That's
in
the
the
only
morning.
time that I check myself. I actually have. Well, we'll have to talk about the Luma another time. But,
Yeah.
So
Okay, so let's talk about your own journey. I mean,
Oh.
So how'd you lose the 50 pounds?
how did I lose the 50 pounds? Man, that was a lot of self-experimentation. That was a lot of let's see what this will do. Let's see what that will do.
I mean,
Yeah.
it's your own experience to help give to the patients.
Oh no, it's all about me.
No, but it's true though.
Well, no,
it is all about you, but it's just that now you have this, like you did so much experimentations with yourself
Yeah.
to figure out what would help and benefit the next person.
When I was heavier, I started looking at my foods, and I thought that the salad was like the saving grace for me. So I had salad in my soup, like pretty much every day. A very boring diet. But what I started realizing that as I continued to lose weight, I had more energy,
Okay.
and that translated to the hobby that I love, which is stand-up paddleboarding.
Oh, yes. Hence the
So,
picture.
yes. So it was all about, okay, well, how can I get faster? I mean, you can geek out on that board forever. Like, how can you change the whole design, the paddle? You know, there's so many different variables. But I thought, okay, well, what would make me go faster is if I weighed less, right? If I weighed 30 pounds less, what kind of speeds would I get? So you kind of have two variables going at the same time. You got, weight loss as well as you have more energy because of your food. Mm-hmm. So as most people notice, like when you do a low carbohydrate diet, you start picking up some energy.
Right. Yeah.
So it started off, I want to say I wanted to be able to run. I used to run a lot.
Okay.
I used to run
So you were always active?
Oh, pretty active. Not always. No, I played rugby. I played sand volleyball. I was very active in high school as well as in college. And then I started getting into running.
Okay.
And I started doing half marathons and all this crazy because I'm running with my dad. My
okay.
dad's run the Boston 3 times.
Oh, wow.
So he's a
Okay.
big time runner, right? And doesn't do it anymore. But I can't imagine how you could do that and still have knees. My knees, my back, over time have paid the price for all those miles. Especially I could go downhill so fast. Watch me, Dad.
Yeah.
I was just killing my knees. So this is why paddleboarding has helped me so much. But I wanted to run. It took me a year to run a quarter mile. But I set out in the very beginning. It's probably the first goal I ever really set. I want to run. I want to run all the way. It was a quarter mile track.
Okay.
Okay. So I started off with what do I need to do to make that happen? So I would do a fast walk and I'd pull a muscle, and then I keep working at it. And then finally, it took me a year. I actually did it in 1 year. I was like, man, if I can do this, if I can really set my mind to some stuff, I could achieve a lot of goals. And that's kind of what happened from there. I started increasing the energy, started running with dumbbells, and I would paddle in the canals.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I'd even paddle at night. It was kind of fairly well lit, but it was cool. I don't know if we can talk about this, but the fish would jump on the board.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I had lights on the board and stuff, and these little fish would jump onto the board. It was kind of cool. It was very boring paddling on the canals, but I mean, hats off to those people that do it. I've done it since then. I used to live in a place where for 2 years, that's all I did was paddling on canals. So it is boring, but I felt like I was getting better at it, and I'd have landmarks and go, how far does it take me to go from here to here, right? So I started getting better and faster, and then finally I got into racing, and that was kind of like another like achievement, another goal.
Okay.
But I came in on my first race at like middle of the pack, and I was like, man, should I be discouraged? Should I just like, man,
that was your first one.
That was my
really?
first race.
And you're like, should I
came
be
in
discouraged?
6 out of 12. Yeah. I was like, man, it was a 5-mile race out in San Clemente at the harbor there. So that was fun. And then ever since I started doing that, I was like, hey, I'm really kind of addicted to the training and the racing. So how can I tweak my food to maximize my speed? So it's kind of a selfish personal thing that I want to improve at.
Right.
And so it was all about cross training. What can I do to make myself a better athlete? And I've never said that. I'm 54 years old. You don't call yourself an athlete at 54. Like, what are you? You know what I mean? And now it's like, oh yeah, it's fun. It's a blast. And it's kind of a cool tribe, and it's almost like when we get together for races, like a family reunion. It's like, everybody, they're all doing different stuff. They're all training hard, and it may seem competitive, but man, I am so not competitive. I'm just there to have fun. I'm just there. I'm really there to just catch up with everybody and just be together. And it's taken me all over the world. I've been on paddle trips with my tribal members, we've been all over. There's some places that I really, really enjoy going. There's some really good lasting friendships, not just up here in the Bay Area, but also like in Southern California, Mexico. So that's never going to stop. And we train all year. Middle of winter. That's a winter shot. Yeah. That's cold. And that's on my Lake Comanche.
That's
there.
Comanche.
Yeah. Favorite races?
Oh yeah.
I wanted to test my food to see if I would hit a wall.
Oh yeah, I think you had talked about that.
Yeah, I wanted to know, like, okay, so if I go, how long? Because when I did this one time when I was not feeding myself properly, I did a 10K one time when I was in my 20s, and I remember going really fast at the beginning. I want to say I had like 4 or 5 minute mile in the very beginning. I was like, oh man, I better slow down. Oh, I gotta slow down. And by the time I got to like the 9K of 10K, I just hit a wall. I wanted to cry. I wanted to go home. There was no way I was going to get that far. I couldn't finish. I couldn't quit. But at the same time, I walked.
So you just ran out of energy.
I ran out of carbs because that's what I was. I was a carb burner, right? Because my diet was garbage, total garbage.
So what was your diet like? What did you eat on a typical day?
I don't know how you could create a human being with macaroni and cheese and peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, but somehow, I want to say, oh yeah,
We've all lived on that.
I loved it though. I mean, but I would have dinner and turn around an hour or two later and have a sandwich, or I'd eat the whole box of Kraft macaroni and cheese, right? And then it was bedtime, right?
Oh, yeah.
I probably did that every day for years. Peanut butter and jelly sandwich for years, several of them, right? Mm-hmm. And it had to be Welch's. Sorry.
Oh God.
Isn't that horrible? Yeah. And if it oozed out, that was even better.
Yeah. No.
Yeah. Wonder bread with peanut butter and jelly. Oh yeah. Horrible. Like the worst kind of bread ever. Yeah. So now it's like, okay, how does this fueling of my body prevent me from hitting the wall?
Right.
Right. So like, what do? How do you feed yourself so you don't run out of steam? So I've found that when I'm fat adapted, I don't hit that wall. And we do some really long ones. We have what we call the crossing. It's crossing of Lake Tahoe.
Okay.
And you start off. It's 22 miles.
22 miles. Okay.
Yeah. When you start, you can't see the other side, and everyone's like, "Oh yeah, it's over there." No, I'm just going to follow you. But you get to a point where you kind of get all spread out and like everyone's kind of everywhere. You're like, where am I supposed to go? Right? Oh, it's a scratch. There's a scratch on the hill. Like, really? I don't see it. And you're 10 miles into this thing, and you've got to figure out where to go. So even then, after 4.5 hours, I still didn't hit a wall. It was more of a hydration issue where you're cramping.
Okay.
But I never was like, oh, I ran out of energy. I couldn't go any further. I'm done. Right? And there's another race called the CRQ, the California River Quest. What we do, I typically do just the 50 miles because I think 7.5 hours of paddling is enough. Not some of these people do the 16 hours of paddling, and your hands are just blistered, right? I got blisters after 55, right? I don't need to go any further, right? To me, that's the rate limiting step.
50 is good.
50 is good. I'm good at 50. So, and it's down the Sacramento River. It goes from Sundial. I go from Sundial to Red Bluff.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I remember the first time I did it, I didn't know the course very well. I had done the top half several times. I didn't know the bottom half. But the bottom half is you go through Red Bluff, of course. But I had some fishermen tell me, oh, yeah, finish line's right around the corner. Oh, cool.
Right around the corner in like 10 miles?
I had no idea. No, yeah, exactly. I'm like, you jerks. They told me it was right on the corner. I just kept going. Right. Oh, man, these should be right around. No, it was never right around the corner. So angry. Because what happened in the beginning of the race, I lost my phone and I didn't have my mileage. I didn't know where I was, right? I had no way of communicating, anything to anybody. Typically, you know how far you're going.
Right.
We have devices that measure all that stuff. Man.
So what did you eat? How did you train for that as far as eating goes? Like, were you already fat adapted or?
I definitely was fat adapted. I was doing low carb. I wasn't as carnivore-ish then as I am now. But I felt like my diet was optimal. I felt like eating the way I was eating was providing me with the energy that I needed and a little bit of extra, right? Because you want to have good workouts. I mean, your typical workout's like an hour and a half long, right? Depends on how much volume you're doing, and I've really dropped away from volume. Now it's more about sprints. So I do high intensity interval training, HIIT. So you're doing very, very high intense, and so you're getting your heart rate very high and then bringing it down. So, and which is mostly burning carbohydrates. And even doing that kind of exercise and doing low carbohydrate forces the body into a fat burning mode. So when you're not eating much carbs, so you don't have much in the tank anyways. You're stingy with your carbs. And then you're doing high intensity interval training, which is dumping carbs.
Okay.
So you've dumped and you don't have very much. You are forcing the body into this fat as your primary fuel source. Best way to get into ketosis, right?
Right.
The best way to increase, in my opinion, increase the enzymes that you need to make fat your primary fuel source. So that's kind of this forced ketosis has been kind of my philosophy, is if I can do low carb, HIIT, and when you exercise, you want to be fasted. Okay, nothing worse than like eating and then trying to do a HIIT workout, right? That's just you're asking for trouble. That's just vomit, right? Because it's there,
right?
And you're breathing really heavy,
and then your systems change, and they you don't get a blood supply to the stomach, and then you.
Oh yeah, you're focusing on absorption,
right?
And blood flows
taking
there.
More energy there than it is anything.
Yeah,
so that's why you want to do it fasted.
I don't understand the whole pre-workout glucose load, carb loading stuff. I mean,
that's usually for when they talk for the night before, right? Rather than the morning
I don't do that even.
Yeah,
I skip that.
So now
I'm not like, hey, I need to have a big pasta meal.
Fat burner versus carb burner?
Well, some of it's Tim Noakes. Tim Noakes is I want to say he's Australian or New Zealand physician who he wrote the chapter in Runner's World, or actually I think he wrote a book on the carb loading.
Okay. And
he had to he wrote a chapter. That's what it was. It was a chapter in a book, and he's like, rip it out, get rid of it. It was wrong. I was wrong. I think that takes
So he was talking about carb loading, and then all of a sudden he's changed his tone.
Well, there was like a 20-year gap, and he's like, hey, that carb loading wasn't good advice. I mean,
because you ran out of carbs.
Yeah, but it's not so much that as that you're making yourself dependent on carbohydrates as your primary fuel source. You want to be fat burner especially when intensity is low. And when you're running, intensity isn't super high. Your heart rate's, depending on how fast you're running.
Not a runner.
It's not 170, 180, right? Like you're doing in a high intensity interval training, depending on your age, right? Which is 220 minus your age. You want to be in that zone 4 and 5 where your heart rate's pretty high. Running is more like 130, 140, right? You're not as for us, right? So it's a lower intensity. When you're at lower intensities, you're burning mostly fat.
Okay.
Right? So when we're sitting here, we're just burning fat. But the second that you eat some carbs, fat burning's over. Right? That's done.
That's done.
That little continuous infusion is gone, right? That thing just shuts off, and now, So you think about, okay, what do I want to burn? What would be a better fuel source?
Right.
Carbs are limited.
Why?
You only got 1,000 calories.
Why are they limited?
Because their body can only retain, say, this is arguable. I've heard so many numbers on this. I like 250.
Okay.
So 250 grams of carbs would be about 1,000 calories.
Okay.
Not a ton. How many calories do you think you burn in a day? 2,500. If you're super active, 3,000, 3,500.
I have no idea.
Right. So someone like you is probably like 2,000, 1,800, 2,000. And so if that was, how long would the carbs last you then? Half the day.
Half the day.
Yeah. About half the day. So where's the other half going to come? It's going to come from fat. But how many calories of fat do you have on you?
Currently a lot.
Okay. No. That's changing. That's in a state of flux. But let's say you're a trained. Okay, let's say even for a woman, a very fit woman would be, say, 20% body fat. Mm-hmm. Okay, so you're looking at you're walking around with 30 pounds of fat.
Okay.
All right. Now, this calorie number is not definitive. This has not been proven. That's like 3,500 calories is the pound.
Okay,
so this is where it's like,
I
hate calories.
Because that's what they say, 35 or 3,600
yeah, but
what
is that based off
pound.
of? Who
I don't even know what it's based
they
off
just
of.
pulled it out of the air.
Oh, okay.
They don't even know, right?
So it could be anything.
If that's the case, then I'd have to run for 4 hours to burn a pound of fat.
Yes.
This is why calories doesn't make any sense. Like you're on the treadmill and you're like counting the calories. I think that is so ridiculous. I've seen one that says it says how many carbs you're burning. How are you coming up with this?
I have no idea.
It's so silly.
And how do they know you're burning carbs and not fat?
Well, yeah. You'd have to be basing it on maybe heart rate zone, and I think that just kind of tells me, that means I can go home and have a bunch of carbs because I burned a bunch.
We'll see. Yeah,
replacement, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So you have maybe 1,000 calories of carbs, but we have even if we say, so you'd have 90,000 calories of fat, and you're burning 2,000 calories a day. That's 45 days.
You could
and half a day of carbohydrates. Mm-hmm. Which tank do you think that the body was designed to burn, right? What's the best storage system do you have? It's fat, right? And I know we demonize fat. We hate fat.
Right, because that's the world.
Yeah, but if it jiggles, it's okay.
Oh, yeah. No.
If it's jiggles, subcutaneous fat, it's safe. It's fine. You're good, right? But when you have it in other places, it's harmful.
They call it the brown fat and visceral fat.
Yeah, I like the brown fat. Brown fat, when we talked about we were talking about high intensity interval training and ketogenic diet as well as hypothermia, right? Where you're getting yourself pretty cold, and as well as you're going from that, maybe going to a sauna.
Okay.
Okay.
I know
that increases brown fat, as well as it does so many wonderful things for your brain. I mean, exercise is amazing relaxation for the brain, right? You ever think about when you're exercising, you're like, hate this. Why am I out here? You're thinking about all these things I got to do when you get done, and before you know, everything just kind of fades. Before you know, you're like, I'm just thinking about my breathing, right? I'm just thinking about what I'm doing.
You're kind of in the zone,
right? You're in your zone, right?
Yeah.
But how many thoughts had to go away before you got into your zone? Now the brain's only thinking about one thing. The brain needs to think about less. You need to stop processing all this information and really focus on what you're doing. And that's what exercise really is, relaxation. As crazy as it may seem.
I know. Okay.
Do we want to talk about what I've learned from all this?
Yeah, I think that you everything that you've collected over the years and studied, and especially the last 10 years.
Yeah.
Toward your diabetes.
Yeah.
Education.
I mean, I've learned that don't compare yourself to, don't go back too far. I mean, I have so many people that say, man, when I was in high school, I could do this. Really? How relevant is that now?
Well, like 37 years ago for me or more.
Yeah, I used to be able to do this. Like, it's not relevant, right? And so I've kind of like, it's better to be short-sighted. What can I do today that I couldn't do yesterday? Yeah. Think small. Don't be careful with what you use as a gauge, right? You should only gauge with yourself, right? Mm-hmm. And of course, you're saying wonderful things to yourself, right? You're giving yourself a whole bunch of positive feedback. You're saying good things. You're looking in the mirror and going, man, isn't it great? Isn't life good? Life's wonderful.
But I think people should start saying that.
And you got to say it out loud. It's got to come out of the mouth.
No, it does.
If it doesn't come out of the mouth,
it's not real.
Well, you also got to tell your mind. Mm-hmm. You got to tell your mind that this is what we're doing. Mm-hmm. It's just an organ, and I felt like I've been able to control what my brain's doing, right? And I really feel like healthy body, healthy mind.
Yes.
When your mind, that's kind of a typical side effect of many. When the body is being well fed, the brain's being well fed too, because it doesn't have a separate system, right? Mm-hmm. It's dependent upon the body for energy for the brain. And once you fix that problem, thoughts seem to improve. Coping improves, right? Your outlook, your positivity improves, mm-hmm. and you're able to practice gratitude very
endorphins,
easily.
It's the happiness.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm. Oh, man. Some of my best highs are on doing HIIT, man. Oh, I love that. Sprints usually gets me there pretty quick. Yeah. I love that. I love that feeling. But I've been able to find out that when I can control my body and feed it well, it will pay off with my brain, right? Mm-hmm. The brain energy level starts rising and cognitive function improves. And these are all great ways to prevent things like Alzheimer's disease, depression, right? Mm-hmm. All these things that we're suffering from, it starts here. It starts with the body and what are we feeding it? So I have found that low carb, healthy fat, or even really a carnivore diet is optimal for the human body. And there's so much data to support that. And I think that would be fun to talk about as well.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I think we should do that. So what's our next topic?
I don't know. There's so many things I want to dive into. We've talked about my past and my history as well as what I've learned from it, but also what are the takeaway? Like what other techniques can we use to help improve our lifestyle? And I really, as we've talked about quite a bit, we talked about technology, having more information is better than not having that information. Yeah. And that's kind of what I've been able to do with, this Unscripted Pharmacist and this diabetes reversal, where I put people on this monitor that allows them to see what's going on, and they can change. Themselves. Yeah, they can educate themselves, but they can make that change, and they can see the benefit of those changes. Like right now, wake up, you feel better.
Yes.
Right? As you know.
As I know.
Tell me about we'll have to get into your experience. Yeah. So that would be really fun to talk about the point of technology in creating a lifestyle change for basically just better health.
All right.
Yeah. It's a great journey, and I would suggest everybody go on this. Yes, everybody needs to think about how you can improve your life. And that's pretty much it.
And then what about the topic for next podcast? What do you think? Where are we going?
Man, I love technology, but I think just focusing on diabetic education and weight loss.
Okay, let's do that.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
All right.
Well, thanks for tuning in.
Yeah.
Thanks for showing up. Thanks for being here.
Absolutely.
It's been fun.
I know. Thank you.
It's like me hanging out with you over without lunch, right?
Yeah,
at the Oncology Center. Like Kyle's delivering meds at the chemo center, and he won't go away.
Yeah.
You've been listening to the Unscripted Pharmacist Podcast with Kyle Rootsaert and Lenora Casey. Please like our program by clicking on the thumbs up button. This helps us get more important information out to others that we might help. If you have a question, comment, or suggestion, please jot us a note in the comments section. And be sure to subscribe to the Unscripted Pharmacist Podcast because there is a lot more for Kyle and Lenora to discuss, and you won't want to miss a word. The Unscripted Pharmacist, produced by Chris Stevenson, recorded by Sarah Lunsford at the studios of Calaveras Community Television. Thanks for listening.